Hi everyone, this is your first video for Unit 2 on descriptive statistics. This is the start of the first section, which is descriptive statistics basics, as well as how to represent categorical and quantitative data. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into this. As always, my slides that I usually would project for you in the classroom are on the left side of your screen, and the notes that you would take are on the right side of your screen. And as always, I'm editing and annotating in Cami, but you can make edits directly to your document if you wish. All right, so let's talk about this. So hopefully you know some of this stuff already, either from being exposed to it in a previous math class, a previous science class, or possibly from what we've done with studies and experiments. So when you're talking about data, okay, we always are observing data about individuals. So individuals are the objects described by a set of data. That's not how you spell by a set of data, meaning the whole person, a place, an animal, a thing, okay, etc. Right? So people, places, animals, things, etc. Okay, a variable is what we are studying typically as the statistician. So it's the characteristics that we are concerned about that individual, right? Individuals have lots of different characteristics, but typically when we are gathering data, we only want to collect one of those. Okay, so a variable is any characteristic of an individual. And then I put in there, i.e., what we are actually collecting, meaning what we are actually collecting information about. Okay, right, and then we have talked about this already, but there's two different types of variables: categorical variables and quantitative variables. You may have heard categorical variables described as qualitative, right? But in statistics, our two categories are categorical and quantitative. Pardon me, I'm getting lots of notifications as I make these videos for you guys. All right, so categorical data, the way that you determine that you are dealing with categorical data is that categorical data places individuals into one of several categories. Okay, the way that you want to think about this is, can you take one individual, narrow down to just one individual, and then put them in a group with other individuals? Okay, that's how you know you're dealing with categorical data. Another good tip is you are dealing with categorical data if you are if you're able to talk about the proportion or the percentages of individuals that fall in a particular category. So some examples would be zip codes, grade level, class period, hair color. You could do age when grouped, so meaning children from ages 2 to 5, and then from ages 6 to 8, etc. Okay, and then categorical data is always represented with either a bar graph or a pie chart. And I just realized I need to zoom in on this a little bit on this side so that you all can see this a little bit better. Apologies. Okay, so represented with either a bar graph or a pie chart, right? Quantitative data takes numerical values for which it makes sense to find an average, or measure with a unit. Okay, that's the easiest way to pick out quantitative data. If you're looking at an individual and you can place them on a scale, like on a unit, so if it's measured in feet or yards uh, or liters or percent correct, like a test score or something, right? So you can give a unit to all of those things. It's also very easy to find an average of all of those things. You can't find an average for categorical data, okay? So some examples that I gave you here are age, test scores, height, income, GPA, number of people in your household, right? There's lots of different ways to do that. And with quantitative data, these are represented with lots of different types of charts. The most common ones are stem and leaf plots, histograms, box plots, and dot plots. All right. Okay, then let's talk about what a distribution is. So a distribution gives us all possible values of a variable and then how often it takes on those values. So it tells us, that's not how you spell us, what values a variable takes and how often it takes those values. Okay, so what it does is it gives us a pattern of variation for or of a variable. Okay, so a distribution is essentially all of the ways that it's a representation of your data, right? Your distribution of data will show your minimum values, your maximum values, where the highest points are, where the lowest points are. If there are gaps, if there are outliers, it'll show you the shape, etc., right? So it's essentially the visual representation of a big group of numbers, right? And then the other thing on here, last thing for basics, is inference, which we talked about in the previous unit on studies and experiments. So inference is our ability to draw conclusions from data to a general population. So drawing conclusions from data to a general population. Okay, inference is the point, right, of essentially everything that we're doing in statistics, right? Remember I told you at the beginning of the year when we first started this course that statistics is about a search for the truth, right? A truth about a population of individuals, whatever that population may be, right? Because it's very difficult to get actual data from everyone in a population, we have to take these small samples, right? And we can then find truths about the samples, but without inference, without being able to draw conclusions from small samples of data to a general population, we wouldn't be able to know the truth about those populations. So that's what inference is for. Okay? It allows us to draw conclusions from data to a general population. Okay, and we talked about this in the last unit, but I'll reiterate for you one more time that there's two ways that you can randomly deal with individuals when you're designing a study or experiment. Okay, so if you randomly select individuals from a population, which is like what you do when you do a study, okay, that is the only time that you can make inference about your population, right? If you pull people at random from your population or subjects at random from your population, gather information about them, and then observe the results, then you can make inferences about your population. If in an experiment you randomly assign people to groups, that's the only time that you can make inferences about cause and effect. Okay. So if you don't randomly assign subjects to treatment groups that you are actively changing, then you can't make inference about cause and effect. All right. So let me erase this here. And I think I have one more on this side. Yes, I do. All right. So let's do an example here. Let me erase this. Okay. So here we have this question that's telling us about our administration. They want to know more about the vehicles that students at Valley drive, and since they know we're so good at data, that they are asking us for our help. So we're going to pretend that we went out into the parking lot and we made a spreadsheet that included the car's model, year, color, number of cylinders, gas mileage, weight, and whether or not the car had a navigation system. Okay, so the first question here is, who are the individuals in the study? Remember, the individuals are what we are gathering data about, right? Like the whole person or the whole subject. So in this case, the individuals are the cars. Okay, the cars are our individuals in this study. Okay, and then there's obviously lots of variables there that it said that we observed. And we want to try to sort them into categorical or quantitative. Okay, so remember, the categorical variables, you have to be able to narrow down to one individual and put that individual in a category based on that variable. Okay, so model is definitely a categorical variable. Color is a categorical variable. And navigation system, whether or not it has a navigation system, is categorical, okay? Because I can place individuals into each of these categories and there won't be any overlap, all right? Then all of the rest are quantitative. So you have year, which can be a little controversial depending on how you think about it. So year, number of cylinders, gas mileage, and weight. Okay, the last three there, number of cylinders, gas mileage, and weight, those are very easily identified as quantitative because you can find an average for all of those, right? You can find the average weight of these cars. You can find the average number of cylinders that our cars have. You can find the average gas mileage, okay? Now, year is a little bit trickier, just because depending on the way that you represent the data, it could be categorical because it doesn't exist on a like on a continuum. But because you were really, if you were going to do years as a categorical variable, you would have to group them. So saying like the year, like, you know, if the cars were from like 2000 to 2005, you would put them in one category. 2006 to 2010 would be another category, right? But most of the time when we deal with year, we're looking at, on a car at least, we want to identify the individual year. So that's why we're calling this one quantitative. All right, y'all, so that is it for this video. In the next one, I'm going to talk about categorical data and then quantitative data and displaying those things in the next couple of videos. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.